Robert Peel.
Let's talk about Robert Peel. In 1829, Sir Robert Peel established the London Metropolitan Police Force. He became known as the father of modern policing, and his commissioners established a list of policing principles that remain as crucial and urgent today as they were 2 centuries ago. They contain 3 core ideas and 9 principles. The 9 policing principle. Number 1. To prevent crimes in disorder as an alternative to the repression by military force and severity of legal punishment. Robert Peel was convinced even then that repression of crime is basically not a sustainable way of promoting the safety and security of the community. He also knew that filling a prison with convicted criminals through deterrent legal punishment cannot make the nation safer. To ensure sustainable peace and security by any nation, prevention of crime and disorder should be prioritized. In prioritizing prevention, the key pillar being intelligence should be highlighted for attention. In many countries, police are reactive to suppress crime, leading to an overburdened judiciary and an overly populated prison that have no capacity to reform inmates. Consequentially, recidivism is becoming a greater threat to the fight against crime. Number 2. To recognize always that the power of the police to fulfill their function and duties is dependent on public approval of their existence, actions and behavior and other ability to secure and maintain public respect. The police wield a unique set of powers, the power to arrest people, the power to search another citizen home or person, the power to detain someone in order to investigate a crime. It's an easy mistake to think that this power comes from the court, system, and judicial officials. After all, officers have to apply to a judge to get a warrant. If they arrest someone, they are required to go before an impartial magistrate and provide probable cause for why they did so. And of course, the police don't make the laws, so they can only enforce what judge and attorney interpret the law to be. But the truth is, the power of the police comes from the public and can be revolved by the public. This is not to say policing is a popularity contest. If it were a matter of being liked, the police would be required to pander to each and every group with a social media account. Robert Peel was very careful to use the phrase public respect, not adoration. Number 3. To recognize always that to secure and maintain the respect and approval of the public means also the securing of the willing cooperation of the public is the task of securing observance of laws. If the public respects the police and we have their approval, they will naturally want to cooperate by obeying the laws. You might say, the willing cooperation is a byproduct of respect. If there is no respect and the lack of approval of law enforcement action, it is difficult to have that willing cooperation. Instead, you end up with reluctant cooperation based on the fear of the consequence of someone's action rather than willing cooperation. Eventually, reluctant cooperation can turn into full-fledged disobedience of the law. If law enforcement treats people with respect, we will gain their approval. If we gain their approval, we will benefit from their cooperation and their willingness to obey the law, which will make our job easier. Number 4. To recognize always that the extent to which the cooperation of the public can be secured diminishes proportionately the necessity of the use of physical force and compulsion for achieving police objectives. Law enforcement need the willing cooperation of the public to do their job effectively. We can't use for the compel them to comply. The use of force by police officers is a necessary part of their job. However, that use of force must be reasonable, appropriate, and delivered fairly and impartially. Otherwise, law enforcement will not have the willing cooperation of the public. Law enforcement must understand the relationship between the policing using physical force versus the need to have the willing cooperation of the public. This relationship matters because law enforcement cannot effectively do their job without the willing cooperation of the public. Police will never be able to use force as a motivator to gain the willing cooperation of citizens. The more force is used by the police, the less the public is willing to cooperate. In fact, just the perception of the police using too much force leads to a lack of willing cooperation. Number 5. to seek and preserve public favor not by pandering to public opinion but by constantly demonstrating absolute impartial service to law, incomplete independence of policy, and without regard to the justice or injustice of the substance of individual laws, by ready offering of individual service and friendship to all members of the public without regard to their wealth or social standing, by ready exercise of courtesy and friendly good humor, and by ready offering of individual sacrifice in protecting and preserving life. Again, these principles center on how we as law enforcement officers treat others. This principle also take it a step further by focusing on how we apply the law. This lengthy principle contains a lot of useful information. According to Phil, the police should never pander to the public. I was not exactly sure what the word pander meant, so I looked it up. Pandering means to please other people by saying or doing what you think they want you to do or say. In this context, Phil is strongly suggesting that when it comes to the law enforcement cannot act based on what the public want or what some special interest group of the public may want, just to gain their favor. Instead, we should act based on the law and what the law says. Number 6. To use physical force only when the exercise of persuasion, advice, and warning is found to be insufficient to obtain public cooperation to an extent necessary to secure observance of law or to restore order, and to use only the minimum degree of physical force which is necessary of any particular occasion for achieving a police objective. The use of physical force by a law enforcement is one of the most misunderstood responsibilities of law enforcement. Citizens view law enforcement use of force as something done to them, while law enforcement views police use of force as a necessary tool on their tool belt. On top of the differing views, many police use of force are viewed by many as having a disparate impact on minor. Even with these differences of opinion, all sides will agree that the less physical force law enforcement has to use, the better. Police use of force has been under extreme scrutiny of late, unlike at any point in history. Law enforcement must accept the closer scrutiny of police use of force and acknowledge we don't always get it right. Additionally, law enforcement must take proactive steps to reduce police of force. Force must only be used in appropriate situation. Number 7. To maintain at all times a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historic tradition that the police are the public and the public are the police. The police being only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of community welfare and existence. This only tells us that the police officer who we know as the public servants must have a good relationship to us, to people. Why? Because we are looking up onto them and people were like trusting them that whenever we are in times of danger, who are we gonna call? Of course, the policemen. So that is why a good relationship, a good image to mass people is very important. Because as a police, you have to tell that people that you can serve them, you can play your role, do your duties for the citizen, and protect the community. Number 8. To recognize always the need for strict adherence to police executive function and to refrain from even seeming to usurp the powers of the judiciary of avenging individuals or the state, and of authoritatively judging guilt and punishing the guilty. The police serve a specific role in the criminal justice system. As part of the executive branch, the legislative branch makes the law and judicial branch interprets the law, and the executive branch enforces it. Each branch operates independently, although all three are intertwined. The separation of roles in the criminal justice system is designed to ensure fair treatment of people in each stage. Police officers are responsible for arresting individuals who break the law and have the legal authority to take another person's life under certain conditions. Officers should not take the responsibility lightly. Even so, the police should never act as a judge, jury, and executioner. To the extent possible, police officers should do everything within their power to preserve life. Deadly force should only be used if there are no other options. The police must focus on carrying out their responsibility professionally and efficiently. Number 9, to recognize always that the test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder, and not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with them. There are various factors that influence the crime rate for any particular area. Some of these factors include population density and the degree of urbanization, age and gender of the population, the transience of the people, poverty level, job availability, median income, modes of transportation, educational level of people, family condition, and climate. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. Instead, it is evidence that reducing crime is a more complicated proposition than first evident. Police leader must be careful about taking credit for a reduction in crime because they will invariably have to take responsibility with crime rises. Despite the many factors that influence the rise and fall of crime, few people would argue that how the police operate impact the crime rate. As part of their responsibility, police officer will make arrests, issue citations, and conduct operations designed to make the community safer. We should never forget that the action should not be the primary way a department's efficiency is measured.
Thank you.